Hi, in this video we're going to look at some creative ways you can use effects to make interesting sounds. So the first example we're going to look at is some creative ways to use distortion. So I've put together a quick example and I'll go through how I've used distortion in here. Okay, so let's start off with the drums. So we're going to look at this loop above the drums. So without the effects on it, it sounds like this. Sort of typical hi-hat loop. And then what I've done is used Serum, which is just playing a sine wave, which sounds like this. So why I've done this is because when you have the sine wave and the hat loop and it's heavily distorted, the way the sine wave interacts with the distortion gives you this really interesting result. So I've got IZotope Trash, which I've just got the fry setting, bit of drive, filter to remove the sine wave and the harmonics produced above it, and another EQ. So let's compare before and after. And now if I take away the Serum part, you get this like really crunchy, nice top end. It depends on what pitch as well you play the sine wave, makes a huge deal of difference. Yeah, you get a completely different result. And it begins to become audible. And then what I've done as well is used an LFO tool just to give it the syncopation. So again, without the sine wave. And again, that is just from a splashy sort of live sounding hat loop. And the next thing I've done is a similar idea using bass. This isn't the best example in the world, but it's just to give you an idea of what you can do. So I've got a bass sound here, which is just a patch on Serum. And then I've got another instance of Serum just doing the ARP white noise, which sounds like this. Bear with me a second, there's some effects on here. So we've got some white noise, and we've got this bass patch. So together, it doesn't sound particularly exciting, but what I'm going to do is cut the low end out the white noise using Pro Q2, and then I've got an LFO tool just to give it the noise some syncopation, which sounds like this. And then that goes to a bus with a trash on, and then when we add Serum, you get this sort of dirty but controlled sort of sheen to the top of the sound. And the LFO tool is optional just to give it sort of movement and syncopation. And then I've just got a sidechain trigger here, which is triggering Pro C2 where the kick and snares. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is a cool way of creating sort of weird effects on vocals. So I'm using Replika XT, which I've got in diffusion mode, and it's got its pitch shifter built in, but you could just use a pitch shifter plugin or a frequency shifter and get weird results as well. But I'll play you with and without, and then I'll show you what it's doing. So this is the vocal dry. And then with the effect. So if I get rid of the delay and we'll concentrate on the pitch shifter first, it's shifting it up by 5 semitones. And on its own, you can kind of, it's really obvious without the delay that it's an effect most of the time. It doesn't sound too bad on this instance though. So it gives it this sort of doubling effect. Obviously, the where you tune it to, you want to be in the key with your track or what have you, want to work musically with what you're doing. It gives it this nice sort of doubling effect, but you can make it pitch up to the note of a chord, and then when you add the delay in with it, another trick I like to use on vocals is to use a really over-the-top delay or reverb and then compress it so that as the tail's decaying, the compressor's sort of fighting it back and bringing the level back up. And then I can bounce them down and use them for like risers and soundscapes and drones and things like that. So on here, I've turned the delay up all the way, the feedback up all the way, which sounds like this. And then I've got a compressor. So if we bounce this down to audio, everything that's created after those first 4 bars is just delay tail. And if we reverse that, like fade out. Got something that sounds really musical and doesn't sound at all like a vocal that you can use as a riser, or you could loop part of it and use it for a drone, or you can do lots and lots of things with it. But it's just a great way of how you can take sounds you've already got within your project file and create more sounds that will fit in the track with them. So in this last example, we're going to look at using Convolution Reverb to apply character and interest to sounds. So instead of using impulse responses, you can literally use anything, whether it be percussion, pads, drones, and you can add the character of that sound to the sound that you're working on and just make it sound a bit more interesting. So I've got a piano part here, which sounds like this dry. And then I've got this percussive SFX sample, and all I've done is cut the low frequencies just above 500 hertz to take out any muddy low frequencies from the convolution, and then have a listen to when I bring this in, how much interest and character adds to the tail of the sound. And you can literally do this with anything and just try out random samples and just see what happens.